how many hours. Hopefully everyone's a bit more well disposed now that they've had taken time to have lunch and kind of sit back and relax their mental focus after so many hours of meetings and discussions. So what I wanted to talk about today is a brief overview of council communications. I think we talked about this at our area council meetings 2 months ago when I first came on. Let's take the next slide. This is kind of the bird's eye overview. I had to do I had an article a few months back where I went and looked at that I did for the council. We were talking about benchmarking price. Went and looked at all these different cities around the state that were similar to us, and nobody is doing what we are doing in communications. I think one of the only cities that is doing something that can be a little bit more than us is Salt Lake, because the city hosts a interactive comment forum, which we're not. I don't think that's something we're interested in doing this time. It's that has its own advantages and disadvantages. So before we just get too deep into this, I just want to let you know that this, like I said, is an overview. So we don't want to get too bogged down into the details. But like I said, we have each of these tools, and this is kind of reflective of how communications generally are becoming so fragmented. I'm not expecting you or interested parties to follow every single one of these channels because it's just the fire hose of information is too much.
For those of us that aren't quite as literate as some of you,
sure.
What is an interactive channel? What's the definition of an interactive
It's supposed to be like the two-way, right? So
right, I got interactive, I understand. What's it? So you're just saying there's a Facebook page.
There's a city council Facebook page that is regularly updated with news and information. These contain duplicates, and that's intentional.
And they are all official city communications.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's the city, and then there's the city council. So that we're talking about what is the city council specifically doing.
Yeah, we know what's that.
And what we're getting to a world instead of broadcasting is microcasting, where everybody has their own little medium of how they get information. So we're not expecting you to go sign up for all these. We're giving you options for you to sign up for the ones that make sense for you.
Yeah.
Is the information the same?
The information's
yeah,
largely the
same.
same.
There are different demographics that use different channels, so we want to try and hit as many of them as we possibly can, and that's kind of the intent behind this.
This is all different from like the mayor's blog. And what kind of overlap is?
Well,
is there not?
So the mayor is very good at covering a lot of the current issues, and I think there's also a page on the Provo City website that current issues that deals with things. This is just the council's take on council actions. What else?
Occasionally, we have a little bit of overlap on where the mayor's office will partner with us, and we'll do a duplicate post on both sites. But by and large, this is council-specific content. Yeah. So again, this is an option for somebody that's interested in following the council. Again, this world of microcasting, some people may be interested in Parks and Rec, but not the city council, or vice versa. And so we are giving people options to sign up for the type of information that they want and how they want to get it.
So some of these are obviously super intensive, like, and with more frequency, and others are like the council newsletter. They can be coming maybe once or twice a month that will give you the same information.
I'd just add, if you just want sort of a general outsource of information, I would recommend the mayor's blog and his Facebook page. 100% hands down, it's way more interesting than the council stuff.
I think it's
as far as a diversity of information. But if you are but if you have an interest in following the council activities, this would be an additional resource to add on to what the mayor's doing.
If I might just jump in, I get some real flexibility that the council doesn't get. And that allows us to be spontaneous, it allows us to use some humor, it allows us to do things that the council doesn't get to do. And so there is, well, not the humor part, sorry. There is method to the madness of different blogs, because you'll get a different type of information. And if you follow theirs for a little while and see what's coming out, you'll very quickly get a taste of, is this something you enjoy and is helpful? And you get a totally different flavor over on the mayor's blog, which is a little bit informative, but more meant to be kind of what's behind the curtain. That's kind of one of the goals is, well, what's the stuff that the press doesn't tell us, and what's the stuff that's funny that nobody gets to see?
You also do a lot of sales and promotion of our city.
Correct. Yeah.
Which is one of your key roles, is to be the face of the
So
city.
ribbon cuttings or a new restaurant that we did the food truck roundup. I don't know how many of you know, but we have a parking lot of all things that hundreds of people go to on Thursday nights to eat at the food trucks.
Startup building?
The startup building. So that's something we want to blog about and tell our city that that's out there.
Railroad tracks.
So
No, and I think that's a perfect way to describe maybe a little bit of the difference. Where the council content's going to be very much, what are the things that the council is working on? What type of issues have been passed or what are upcoming? So again, it's a different focus. It's a different source of per your interest and per the citizens' interests.
Right, and I love that you brought that up because I was just reminding me of a couple of the things that we've been focused on. Like I didn't include it on this list, but we've been starting to broadcast council meetings, like work session. This meeting, so if everybody wants to wave at the camera, it'll be archived on our YouTube page, so you can watch it later. So for people being interested in transparency and open government and coming to or reviewing the content of these meetings, policy discussions, that's kind of some of the focus behind this council agenda items. Documents, that sort of thing. So if you wanted to just flip really quickly through the next couple slides, these are just going to kind of give you an in-depth. I just included a couple screenshots of each tool, the Google Plus page. You can go to the next one, the council Twitter feed, the council newsletter, how you subscribe, and I think that should be the last one. The council blog, and I think there's also one on the council YouTube. So provo.org. See, they're all and then the YouTube account, which will stream all the meetings. That's the last one.
I just want to tell you on the council newsletter, they're going to include neighborhood news. So if you want me to announce something, please get it into us.
Yeah, that's a new focus that we're going to be call it actually a neighborhood focus. So I'm working with Louise to make sure we can include things from NUSA, we can include neighborhood meetings, we can include any other objects of interest here.
Could that just be a tab on the Provo City website, neighborhoods, and then list each of the neighborhoods? And they
We have that actually.
There is a neighborhoods tab already.
Is there?
Yes.
It's under the council page.
Program.
Under council, so you have to go to council and then neighborhoods.
But I don't know that we can post their stuff on it, can we?
We can. There's a news.
Not yet, but we can.
Tool. I should say that's included on the site that we can. I think we can plug in neighborhood
Oh,
in.
let's start using it.
That'll appear on the sidebar under the neighborhood pages.
All right.
Yeah.
Provo.org.
I'll hear in the back first. Go ahead.
There are a lot of good programs available that allows you to analyze the traffic to the website. Before I spend a lot of time writing newsletters, I'd want to know that there's actually traffic to the website. And I would hope that you would publish that to us or get that to us on, some kind of a frequency, once a quarter or something like that. Because my hunch is, my big issue, I'm sorry, I'm going to get on a soapbox, somebody's shooting me, Pan, kick me off, okay? My big issue is this utopian city we call Provo that we have the Freedom Festival in. We have an important election, and we're lucky to get 15% of the registered voters, which is probably less than double digits of the adult potential registered voters. And I have at neighborhood meetings, and I double advertise them, send out 2 notices of them, and I'm lucky to get 1% of the neighborhood there, and then I'm supposed to stand up for the council and represent the neighborhood opinion. Yeah, we got to come up with a better tool for involving more people. Yeah. And I don't think people are inherently against being involved. They're just, everybody's busy. And unless there's a hot button issue for that individual, they don't show up. That's right. And so I'm glad you're opening up a whole bunch of channels, but when you come back and tell me that there's no traffic in the channel, I'm going to say, I know how to take care of that one.
And we actually, we have analytics on these, and it's a chicken and egg problem. We've got to generate the content before you can see if there's even traffic to begin with. It's like any other campaign or marketing. What?
How many hits does the blog Mayor's get? Seriously.
So,
yeah,
can I jump in on this? Yeah. May I, Mr. Chairman? Ben's point is exactly, I think, why we're doing this. And that is, we get, almost without exception, every issue that comes up, we go crazy trying to get people involved, and then we do it, and they say, why didn't you tell us?
Yeah.
I attended a recreation, when we were trying to pass a recreation center bond, I attended a meeting, we called it a mega meeting, we were kind of joking about it, we invited six of your neighborhoods to it. And we had one person, with hundreds of chairs, we took a picture of it, hundreds of chairs, one person who was the former Parks and Recreation Director of Provo City. So my point, Ben, is...
well, I did a lot better than you.
Yeah. You should run for mayor.
No way.
My point is that the new world, fun thing about the new world is it is inexpensive to do these efforts. And so if I send out a letter to the residents, I'm going to spend $10,000. If I can send an email out to 25,000 residents, it's simply the time cost to produce that email. So I really applaud their efforts. And the blog, to answer your question, is if we send out one of our electronic newsletters, we'll drive as many as 5,000 people to the blog that day. If we don't send it out, we're getting over about 1,000 people a day. But I will tell you, I started with these numbers 4 years ago, right where they are. And I don't know what the numbers are, but I remember when I look at it at the end of the day, and if 6 people had looked at my blog, I was happy. You know, I was 6 people that I had contacted. And so I think that all social media really starts like this. They're experimenting to see what content people are interested in. It's also a little bit like broadcasting Channel 17, council meeting on Channel 17. Some nights, not lately, but some nights I feel like 3 people are, out at home watching. We should some nights say we got a $100 bill here for everybody that comes down that's watching us. But it's there, if that makes sense. And the cost to put this out there is, I think, worth it for the 3 and for the 6. And every one of those is that much closer to getting engaged and telling people. And it really is inexpensive to do this type of social media. Anyway, that's just for what it's worth.
Yeah, and then there's 2 points in my comment, and you hit one very well. This is a very inexpensive and effective way, and it's the way, our successors will be much better at this than we are, probably. The other thing, though, is that does it cause more involvement?
So to answer that, I think we're to the point on my blog where the answer is yes. And this is probably still maturing. But the other thing is, why I applaud this is where it's going. And this is the new generation. This is how they're getting their information. And so we're ahead of it. And we probably are ahead of it, but we will be ready. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just do the analytics on this to make sure what we're doing are channels that do affect involvement. If in the next city council election there's actually 20% of the registered voters, I'll say yay.
I don't think that's a good benchmark, but I would tell you there are other benchmarks that I would say are valid. Like, are we getting people out to events? And how did they find out about the event? Did it come through one of these things?
Sure.
Those are the benchmarks that we look to over on my side.
Well,
let me give you an example.
If
I just elaborate on your concern, Ben. About 4 months ago, we had a request to start broadcasting our council work meetings. To do so in the traditional way would have cost, I don't know, $10,000 to $20,000 just to set up, and then we'd have to bring Channel 17 in to run the meetings. And so, okay, the instruction, what can you do on a bootstrap production here? So I admit it's a bootstrap production, but we bring in a webcam, we bring in a few mics, we run it off a free service, Google Hangouts, broadcast Hangouts on air, and no, we don't have hundreds of people watching our council work meetings, but I'd say we had at least a dozen people watching it live. This last meeting was a meeting with a fairly significant issue, but those people were expressing comments. I'm so glad this is online, that we can see it from my work or from lunch. And then the read keys. I've gone out and looked at those analytics, and one council meeting I thought was a pretty benign meeting, actually. Had about 80 to 100 views. Well, those were not live views, but people had gone back and pulled up the video to look at some segment. Now, did they watch the whole thing? No, because the total airplay was only a couple hours for a 4-hour meeting. But they were going on, they were finding the piece of information they wanted, and and then clicking it off. And so, yeah, and we're just at the very beginning, so our numbers are nothing like the mayor's. We're still trying to identify the best ways to get that relevant messages out in a way that are interesting to the people, that also try and get them engaged. But so you're on this journey with us, and some of these tools we want to eventually translate to neighborhood program. Again, because this issue of microcasting to the right audience. Some people in your neighborhood will not be interested in every citywide thing on the mayor's blog, but they may be interested in things happening in your neighborhood. So how can we tap, again, for the cost of staff time, a lot of free tools, well, free staff time. How can we capture those micro audiences where we get 5 or 6 more people involved? And that's sort of, I think that's a valid goal.
Sure.
Speaking of involvement, while NUSA is impressed with our organization and our cooperation with Provo City, what we are really lacking on compared to virtually all of the other groups that show up, and there are hundreds, maybe there's thousands and thousands of them out there, but these neighborhood organizations that do some amazing projects, things you just cannot believe, to improve or save their neighborhoods. They are doing it because a large number of people in that area got together, and not just for a little bit, for a long time, committed, and it's not necessarily organized through church, but there are some that are focused on church, and they've overcome apathy. Now, some of them, some black lady got up and said, I decided that I was not going to move away, that I was going to save the neighborhood. It was absolute desperation from the drug dealers and other things they were faced with. And in our neighborhoods, it's usually apathy that keeps people from being involved, and only when there's that hot button issue, and often after something, it's almost too late to do anything about it. But that's what we are really short on here, where people elect me or Lindsay, and then they go, well, I've done my job, and they expect me to come to all these meetings and do all this stuff and then keep them informed. And they're busy, and they don't get involved. Getting people involved for anything is tough. When the mayor said to me, go fix that Nevada Avenue mess, that was not easy. We did pull it off, but the matching funds program, which is great, but it's often not utilized as well as you'd think. The money's there, the opportunity's there, but you got to get people excited about something in the neighborhood, and it's hard.
I appreciate all these comments. This is definitely one of the things that we discuss in communications courses, is identifying key motivating interests of people to get them involved. And to know that, you have to know your publics, which are the neighborhoods and people, residents. So to better serve you, we need to better know you. So these sorts of venues, I think, are valuable. So I guess I just want to close. If anybody wants, I can email these particular channels out to you if you don't know them. They're listed on the city website, they're listed on the council blog. Should be parallels. But we're always looking for ways to make communication tools better, as the mayor said. So that's my presentation. So, thank you.